Blood pounded in my veins, my breath echoing in the still night. What have I done? The question tore through the Havenwood night, piercing my mind like a sharp blade. In that moment, when the line between right and wrong blurred, when desire surged and overwhelmed all reason, I lost myself. The town of Havenwood, Maine, was steeped in a quiet summer night. After a long day toiling at the lumber mill, each hour feeling like two, I only wished to bury myself in the soft embrace of my bed. My feet ached, my head throbbed, the thought of a pillow alone enough to give me a little extra motivation. I tossed my keys onto the kitchen counter, kicked off my worn leather boots, and sighed. But as I passed the hallway, a sliver of light from the living room stopped me in my tracks. Adam. I'd completely forgotten he was here. He'd called earlier in the week to say he'd be visiting for a few days. But I hadn't expected him to show up in Havenwood on the very day I was most exhausted. Adam was always here and there, never staying in one place for long. He had a certain charm, a bright smile and a laugh that echoed throughout the house. Despite being my uncle, Adam always possessed something that made people look twice: confidence, a polished demeanor, and a strange, unforgettable energy. I stood in the hallway, hesitant. Should I knock to see if he was still awake or already asleep? But then curiosity got the better of me. The light peeking from beneath the door wasn't too bright. Probably just the nightlight. Maybe Adam was already sound asleep. I thought I'd peek in to make sure everything was alright, then head to bed, quietly pushing the door open. The hinges let out a wretched squeak in the still of night. But Adam remained motionless. I stepped inside. The warm glow of the lamp cast an amber hue throughout the room. And Adam lay there, reclined on the old sofa. He wasn't covered by a blanket, his hands resting idly on his chest. My heart skipped a beat, my breath catching in my throat at the sight before me. Adam's shirt was rumpled, pulled up to expose part of his toned stomach. His jeans were lowered, revealing more than I should be seeing. His hand rested casually on his thigh, his gaze cast downward. I gasped. Adam was asleep, his chest rising and falling steadily. But his jeans were half unzipped, the edge of his gray Calvin Klein briefs peeking out. The top buttons of his shirt were undone, revealing his tanned collarbone in the lamplight. And then my eyes fixed on the provocative bulge outlined by his underwear. I should have looked away, pretended I'd seen nothing, but my feet were rooted to the floor. My heart pounded, my mind swirling with thoughts I didn't dare acknowledge. I'd never looked at Adam like this before. But suddenly, I found him so attractive. Adam's unguarded, vulnerable air sparked something inside me that I couldn't understand, yet couldn't ignore. I moved forward, slowly, hesitantly. Adam's face was turned to one side, looking strangely at peace. He had no idea I was even here. I swallowed hard, trying to breathe evenly, but the closer I got, the harder it was to resist that powerful pull. What the hell was I doing? Reason screamed at me to stop, to get out of here immediately. But curiosity and longing had overcome everything. I'd never thought of Adam this way. He was family. This was wrong. But the light glinting on his tanned skin, his body relaxed on the sofa. I couldn't tear my eyes away. I knelt beside the sofa, my hand trembling as I lightly touched the exposed skin of his stomach. The warm sensation that spread through me made me jump as if I'd been shocked. I held my breath, afraid Adam would wake up. But he remained still, growing bolder. I slid my hand up to his chest, feeling the warmth of his skin beneath my palm. My heart beat so violently I could barely think. What the hell was I doing? This was insane. But I didn't stop. I didn't want to stop. I leaned closer, the subtle scent of Adam's Sauvage cologne filling the space around me. I looked down at his face. The strong lines, the squared jaw, the light stubble. Adam was sound asleep, completely at peace and unaware. Adam, I whispered quietly in the silent room. He didn't answer, his breath steady, his lips slightly parted in sleep. I swallowed hard, my throat dry, and before I could stop myself, I lightly kissed the back of his hand. The warmth from his skin made me shudder. My heart raced, guilty thoughts seizing my mind. I knew this was wrong, but I couldn't stop. My hand slid up his arm, lightly kissing every inch of skin. His skin was smooth, warm, the cologne intoxicating. The veins beneath his skin pulsed faster. My chest burned as I leaned closer to his neck. Then Adam stirred slightly, a soft moan escaping his lips. I froze, my heart leaping into my throat. I looked at Adam, a wave of fear washing over me. Afraid he would wake up, would open his eyes and find me too close. But Adam only sighed and relaxed. I breathed a sigh of relief. I should have stopped, left before things went too far. But I couldn't. I was trapped in that moment, in a strange desire that was rising within me. But it didn't end there. I should have left the room. The thought echoed in my head, but my body wouldn't obey. I was already too close. Had gone too deep into that moment to turn back. Reason screamed for me to leave, but some primeval instinct kept me rooted there. My hand stopped on Adam's arm, gliding over the hard lines of his muscles. I felt the pulse of his veins beating steadily beneath his skin, making my heart beat faster. Adam stirred again, and I held my breath, but he still didn't wake up. I hesitated, my hand hovering over Adam's chest. My mind was torn between longing and trepidation. What was I doing? This was wrong, but Adam's pull was too strong. I couldn't resist, even though he didn't know. Adam moaned softly in his sleep. His chest rose and fell steadily. I bit my lip, my eyes drifting down to the edge of his half-unzipped jeans. Whether it was intentional or accidental, the sight made me flush. I couldn't look away. My hand instinctively reached for the edge of his jeans, where the zipper was completely lowered. The fabric was soft beneath my fingers. I could feel the warmth of his skin underneath. My heart beat like a drum as I ran my hand along the edge of his jeans, right over his briefs. I glanced at Adam's face, afraid he would wake up and catch me. But his eyes were closed, his breath steady. Adam was sound asleep, completely unaware of what I was doing. But the way his body reacted, the soft stirs, the small sounds, made me feel that he knew. On some level, as if he was waiting for this. I leaned closer. My breath became short and ragged. The room felt stifling. My mind went blank as my hand touched the edge of his briefs. I hesitated. Reason screamed for me to stop, but my body wouldn't obey. Adam, I whispered again softly. He stirred slightly. His lips parted, but he still didn't wake up. I swallowed hard, my throat dry, and slowly, my hand slipped beneath the edge of his briefs. The hot skin beneath my fingers made me shudder. Holding my breath, so wrong, I knew it, but Adam's reaction, his chest rising and falling in time with my own, made me unable to stop. Something was drawing me in, pulling me closer, even though everything told me to run. My hand stopped there, beneath the edge of his briefs, feeling the warmth of his skin. The pulse of his veins beating closer and more intensely than ever before. I should pull my hand away, but I couldn't. My hand slid down, touching the edge of his briefs. The thin fabric couldn't conceal the hardness beneath. My heart pounded, my mind reeling, and before I could stop myself, I leaned down, kissing the fabric lightly right on the edge of his briefs. The scent of his cologne mixed with the warm, familiar scent of his skin made me spin. Then I jerked back. Adam stirred more strongly, moaning softly. I froze, my heart beating wildly as if it was about to jump out of my chest. I thought Adam was about to wake up, would open his eyes and see me. Panic surged through me, but before I could pull my hand away, Adam's hand twitched. He touched my arm lightly. I jerked back as if I'd been electrocuted. I looked at Adam, my breath becoming ragged. Adam's hand slid up my shoulder, lightly but firmly. His eyes fluttered open, looking at me with a completely different look. A flash of confusion passed over his face, as if he was trying to sort things out in his head. Then his eyes locked onto mine, his gaze growing darker, with something dangerous in them. "What are you doing?" Adam whispered, his voice raspy with sleep. Adam's hand slid up the back of my neck, pulling me closer. "What are you doing?" I swallowed hard, my throat tight. I was trapped in Adam's eyes. His hand gripped the skin on my neck lightly. Reason screamed for me to apologize, to get up and run, but my feet were nailed to the floor. I was trapped in Adam's darkening gaze as he looked down at my hand. "Do you know what you're doing to me?" Adam whispered, his voice low and dangerous. His hand slid down to my waist, gripping firmly but not forcefully. His voice was tense, a mix of disappointment and longing, making me shudder. I stammered, my face burning. I should pull my hand away, apologize, but the words wouldn't come out of my throat. I was already too close, had gone too deep to think clearly. Adam's hand tightened on my waist, pulling me closer until our bodies were almost touching. "You don't have to stop." Adam whispered, his voice gentle but urgent. If you want to, you don't have to stop. My heart leapt into my throat. Contradictory emotions warred within me: fear, longing, confusion, guilt. I knew this was wrong. But Adam's eyes, the way his hand caressed my skin, made it impossible to think. I looked at Adam, my voice trembling. I don't know. I don't know what I want. Adam's eyes softened, but the tension remained. I think you do, Adam said softly, his hand stroking my cheek, his thumb gliding lightly across my skin. You just need to let yourself feel. Adam's words echoed in my head, shattering what little control I had left. You just need to let yourself feel. I wasn't sure what I was feeling: desire, fear, or something even more complex. I only knew that I couldn't move. Adam's hand stopped on my cheek, his thumb gliding slowly, making every nerve in my body come alive. I wanted to pull back, to break the tension, but I couldn't say a word. I sat there, my breath ragged, my heart racing, waiting for Adam to act. Adam's other hand slid from my waist down to my thigh, lightly over the fabric of my pants, making me flush. Unable to ignore it, I bit my lip. Powerful emotions surged. Adam's eyes never left mine, growing more intense with each passing second. Don't be afraid, Adam whispered, his voice filling the space between us. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. Afraid? Yes, I was afraid, but there was something else too. Something I didn't want to admit. I was drawn to Adam, the way he touched me, the way he looked at me as if I was his entire world. A dangerous and irresistible fascination. I don't know what to do, I whispered, the small words lost in the chaos within me. But I had let Adam touch me. His hand slid up the back of my neck, pulling me closer, his hot breath on my ear. You don't have to do anything, Adam whispered, his lips grazing my ear. Let me. My heart skipped a beat. A thought flashed through my head: to pull back, to stop before things went too far. But before I could decide, Adam's hand caressed my face, tilting my head towards his. His lips were so close, only a breath away. The warmth from Adam's body pulled me in like an invisible force. I closed my eyes. My heart beat wildly. This was wrong. I knew it, but my desire was stronger than reason. Adam's breath ghosted across my lips. The world around me faded away. Only we remained, in a moment that was dangerous and inescapable. And then, before I could stop myself, I leaned forward. The first kiss was soft, hesitant, like a test, but it didn't last long. When our lips met, something changed. A darkness, a hunger arose. Adam's hand tightened on the back of my neck, pulling me closer. The kiss deepened, his lips moving with a hungry passion that caught me off guard. I gasped, grabbing Adam's shirt. He pulled me closer, the heat from his body pressing against me. The kiss consumed me, overpowering everything. The tension exploded like a fire. Out of control, reason screamed for me to stop, but my body wouldn't obey. Adam's hands were everywhere: my waist, my back. My hands pulled him closer, touching his skin. I felt Adam's body pressing against mine, making the desire inside me rise stronger than ever. I've wanted this for so long, Adam whispered between my lips, his voice hoarse with need. Adam's words sent a shiver down my spine, making me gasp. He'd wanted this for so long? I couldn't believe that Adam had thought of me that way. Not just a moment of impulse. He wanted me, and now it was clear. He wasn't going to stop, unless I told him to. But I didn't want to stop. I leaned into the kiss, my hands sliding up Adam's back, pulling him closer. His body tensed, the hard muscles under my fingers making the desire within me blaze even hotter. Adam's lips were frantic, as if they had been holding back for too long. Now they had crossed every boundary. There was no turning back. Adam's hand slid down to my hips. He gripped me tightly, pulling me onto the sofa beside him. The movement was quick, decisive. The blood roared in my veins. I lay next to Adam, his body pressed against me, the heat between us reaching its peak. He kissed me harder, his hands roaming over my body with a hunger that made me spin. My heart pounded, my mind reeling. I couldn't control it anymore. This was really happening, and no matter where it led, I didn't want to stop. Tell me, what do you want? Adam whispered against my lips, his hands sliding under my shirt, his fingers sliding across my skin. Tell me. I swallowed hard, my breath coming in ragged gasps, as Adam's hand slid higher, brushing over my chest. What did I want? My body screamed its demands. But contradictory feelings overpowered me: guilt, fear, longing. But in that moment, nothing else mattered. Only Adam's eyes. The way he touched me that made me shudder. His voice that made my heart skip a beat. He moaned softly, his hand gripping me tighter. Kissing me again, his lips slid down my neck, leaving a trail of burning heat. Everything was happening too fast, too intensely. But I didn't stop. I arched into Adam's touch. Lost in the moment. "Tell me you want me," Adam whispered, his voice a low growl that made me shudder. His hand slid down to the edge of my jeans, his fingers tracing along the zipper. Waiting for my consent, I swallowed hard, my breath ragged, my mind raced. What did I want? My body screamed its demands. I couldn't deny the way I responded to every kiss from Adam. But the contradictions still overwhelmed me: guilt, fear, longing. I couldn't sort them out anymore. But in that moment, nothing else mattered but Adam, his eyes, his touch, his voice. "I want you," I whispered, the words escaping before I could stop them. And when I said those words, I knew there was no turning back. My hand slid across Adam's back, feeling the hard muscles beneath his shirt tighten and release with every movement. As if we were caught in a storm. Unstoppable, unhurried, I exhaled hard, arching into Adam's touch. My body demanded more. I didn't think, didn't breathe, just felt. My breath hitched, my hips instinctively arching when Adam's hand moved with a purpose. Waves of pleasure coursed through my body. My mind faded, my thoughts scattered, but I didn't care. There was only Adam, those touches, his body pressing against mine. "Adam," I whispered, my voice trembling as Adam's movements became more insistent, more demanding. I didn't know how much longer I could endure. Adam kissed me, his lips hungry on mine. I responded fiercely, grabbing onto Adam's shirt, pulling him closer, eliminating any space completely. The heat between us was unbearable. The tension was suffocating, but I didn't want to stop. I wanted this. I wanted to be close to Adam. I've wanted this for so long. Adam whispered between my lips, his voice hoarse with need. Adam's words made me shudder. My heart skipped a beat. He'd wanted me for so long? The thought made my blood race. My desire burned hotter. My mind faded. My body trembled with a need I didn't know how much longer I could resist. But suddenly, the moment shattered. A sound from outside the door. The hinges of the front door let out a wretched squeak that made us both freeze. Adam pulled back, his breath ragged. His eyes darted toward the door for a moment. We both stood motionless. The tension was replaced by panic. "What was that?" I whispered, my heart hammering as if it wanted to escape from my chest. Adam shook his head, his hand still on my waist. But the fire in his eyes was gone, replaced by something darker. He didn't know. The silence became stifling, like a wall pressing in on us. The reality of what we'd just done came crashing down. This was wrong. And now, someone may have heard, someone may have known. The silence stretched out endlessly. My heart pounded, fear of being caught flooding through me. Adam's hand remained on my waist, warm but tense, the fire replaced by ice. Panic, guilt. We stood still for a few seconds, listening. There were no other sounds, no footsteps. Maybe it was just our imagination. But the thought that someone knew was enough to shatter everything. Adam pulled back, breathing hard, running his hand through his hair. His face conflicted. "I can't do this," he muttered, as if talking to himself. "This is wrong." Adam's words were like a punch to my stomach. The weight of what we'd just done pressed down on me. This was wrong. We both knew it, but we had let it happen anyway. Desire and tension had clouded our reason. And now there were only consequences. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice trembling. I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for letting things go too far. Or for wanting Adam from the beginning. Maybe both. Adam stood up, pacing back and forth, running a hand over his face as if trying to understand what just happened. "No, it's not your fault," Adam said, his voice tense, mixed with disappointment. "It's my fault. I should have stopped." He stopped, shaking his head, his eyes reflecting regret. The room grew colder. Intimacy vanished, replaced by guilt and confusion. I put my shirt back on, my hands trembling, trying to process what just happened. What did it mean for us? For the family? Maybe we should forget it. Maybe we should just forget about this. I said softly, my voice quiet. Pretend it never happened. It sounded delusional. But what other choice did we have? We couldn't turn back time. We couldn't erase what had happened. But maybe we could try to move on. Pretend everything was normal. Adam stopped walking, turning his back to me, looking out the window. Yeah, he muttered, his voice unconvincing. Maybe that's for the best. We both knew it wasn't true. We would never be able to forget. It would hang between us. Unspoken, but always there, no matter how normal Adam tried to act. I stood up, my legs shaky, unstable. I'm gonna go, I said, my throat tight. The weight pressed down on me. I needed to get out. I needed to breathe. He turned back, his expression unreadable. For a moment, I thought he would hold me back. But he just nodded. Yeah, he said softly, maybe that's for the best. I didn't say anything more. I couldn't. My heart was racing, my mind chaotic. I needed to escape Adam's eyes. Escape the reality of what we'd just done. I walked to the door, my hand on the doorknob. But before I opened it, I hesitated. Adam, I whispered, glancing back. Did he regret it? He looked at me, his eyes a mixture of guilt, confusion, and something I couldn't name. He was silent for a long moment. I thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he sighed, his shoulders slumped. I don't know, he said quietly, his voice heavy with regret. I don't know what to think anymore. His words hung in the air. I nodded, understanding. I didn't know what to think either. Everything was too complicated, too overwhelming. I couldn't sort it out. I opened the door, stepping into the dark hallway. The weight of what had happened pressed down on my legs, making it hard to walk. I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't pretend it never happened. But now I had to. The next few days passed in a daze. I avoided Adam as much as possible, staying out in the lumber mill or hiding in my room, trying to sort out the emotions from that night. Each time I thought about it, guilt and shame overwhelmed me. But there was something else too. Something I didn't want to admit. I missed Adam. It was wrong. Even though closeness was impossible, I still missed the intimacy of that night. Not just the physical, but something deeper. A door we had opened. A door we didn't even know existed. And now, with that door open, it couldn't be closed again. But no matter how much I missed him, I knew I couldn't go back. I had to move on. Pretend it never happened. For my family. For myself. A few days later, Adam left. He didn't say goodbye. I heard the front door slam early in the morning. The sound of his car starting as he drove away from Havenwood. He left quietly. But it was right. There was nothing more to say. The house felt empty without Adam. The silence was stifling. I sat on the old sofa, looking at the spot where Adam had sat just days before. I wondered if things could ever go back to normal. Probably not. That night had changed everything. But now, I could only try to forget. Even though I didn't want to. Could I really forget? Or would those memories haunt me forever? Could Adam and I ever face each other again as if nothing had happened? Or would that door remain wide open, separating us by an invisible distance? Only time would tell. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons on my channel. Each of your support is a huge motivation for me to keep creating and bringing you more compelling stories. Thank you so much.